Hey guys, MProductions Gaming here, and we're back on another new episode of Pirate This. As you can tell by the title, we won't be talking about a game's anti-piracy this time around. Except not entirely. Well, you'll understand later in this video. Similar to what I did in my Sonic CD episode a while back, here we'll be tearing down the misconceptions many people have about the presence of piracy protection in a certain video game. That game being Metal Gear Solid. Before I continue, let me explain what this alleged anti-piracy measure is. After meeting with Meryl for the first time, you're instructed by Colonel Campbell to call her frequency on your codec. Campbell tells you that Meryl's frequency can be found on the back of the CD case. Clearly this is an instance of the game breaking the fourth wall by telling you, the player, to look onto the back of the game's CD case to find Meryl's frequency number amongst the promotional images on the back cover. Naturally, when a game tells you that the only way to progress is by referring to its physical game case, it's easy to think that this is the de facto way pirates were deterred from playing bootleg copies of Metal Gear Solid back then. After all, even a decade and a half later, various forum users and game journalists alike would complain about the PlayStation Network version of MGS by saying how, without an online guide, they never know how to progress from this point, because they're playing a digital copy. And that, most definitely, would be the case. If that was the only way to get Meryl's number. You see, there are actually other ways to obtain her number. And no, I'm not just talking about looking up an online guide. One way of getting her number is by going through the game's instruction manual. On page 31, you can see a picture of Meryl's frequency number. Even if you're playing the PSN version, you still have access to a digital version of the manual. Simply press and hold the home button on your controller, and go through the following options you see me selecting on screen. Then, once you reach the manual, flip to the page I mentioned earlier, and there you'll have it. You'll see Meryl's frequency number pictured on screen. Now I'm sure you're saying, that's great, but how could a pirate in the year 1998 get this number? If they don't have the original game case, what makes you think they have the manual? To that I say, that's true. I only mention this to correct those who thought the PSN version was screwing people over by not providing them an alternative way to progress in the game's story. There's still one more way to speak of. The other way to retrieve Meryl's number is, after the first boss battle with Ocelot and rescuing the Arms Tech president, Kenneth Baker, Colonel Campbell will later call and remind you of Baker's instructions to call Meryl, and to look for her frequency on the back of the game case. Instead of listening to him, call Campbell back 3 times. Although he'll say the same dialogue each time, after the third call you'll find Meryl's number automatically added to your contacts list in your codec. Now earlier, I said that this episode will be more about debunking an anti-piracy rumor about a game. However, there is a game that contains anti-piracy measures that operate under very similar circumstances to Metal Gear Solid's falsely rumored one. To continue, we must first jump back in time. A little more. There we go. The name of the game in particular being Metal Gear 2: Solid Snake. For those not fully familiar with the Metal Gear franchise, Metal Gear 1 and 2 are predecessors to Metal Gear Solid. These two games first released on the Japanese computer system called the MSX, and Westerners wouldn't get the chance to play these games in their original forms until Metal Gear Solid 3 was re-released in 2006, titled as Metal Gear Solid 3: Subsistence on the PlayStation 2. To keep it brief, let's just say that Metal Gear Solid was essentially a 3D reimagining of Metal Gear 2. This would mean that Metal Gear 2 shares many story and gameplay elements to its sequel, including having to break the fourth wall in order to get a number for your codec. You see, in Metal Gear 2, once you finish tailing the guard wearing a green beret, you'll find a prison cell building in the middle of the jungles of Zanzibar land. Inside the building, you can hear knocking coming from an adjacent room you can't access. The person knocking is an important contact named Dr. Petrovich Madnar, and the reason why he's knocking is because he's trying to say his codec number via a cipher known as a tap code. If you call Colonel Campbell for more information, he'll tell you that in order to learn how to decipher the tap code, you must refer to the game's instruction manual. Unlike obtaining Meryl's number in Metal Gear Solid 1, calling Campbell's number, or anyone's number for that matter, multiple times won't get you Petrovich's number. So unless you, or someone you know, was a former US soldier who served in the Vietnam War and was unfortunate enough to be captured by the Vietnamese as a POW, you're most likely not going to know how to decipher the tap code without the game's instruction manual. And since this game was originally released in the year 1990, Japanese pirates wouldn't have even been able to rely on the internet to figure out the solution. On top of that, even if you manage to brute force your way through this by guessing his frequency number, prepare to do that an extra 2 times. This is because later on, after defeating the Hind D in a boss fight, Campbell will call you right as you collect the cardboard box item near the entrance of the second building. In the call, he tells you that he's changing his frequency number, and in order to know that new number, he tells you to refer to a picture in the game's instruction manual. The second time he changes his number is due to his frequency being hijacked by Snake's #1 fan, named Deep Throat. However, unlike the last time he changed his frequency, Campbell tells you his number via tap code. Being able to call Campbell isn't actually required to beat the game, but for one, most first-time players wouldn't know this, and two, it does help new players to be in constant contact with him, as he provides the most helpful advice in general whenever you're in a bind. Ironically enough though, if it wasn't for the internet evolving and being so commonplace by the mid-2000s, North Americans who owned a legit copy of MGS3 Subsistence wouldn't have even been able to solve the tap code puzzle. This is because the tap code decipher table wasn't included in the North American version of the game's instruction manual. In fact, the manual doesn't even mention a thing about Metal Gear 1 or 2 to begin with. It wouldn't be until the year 2011 when MGS3 Subsistence was remastered for the PlayStation 3 in a bundle called the Metal Gear Solid HD Collection, when all regions would receive instructions on how to decipher the tap code. These instructions could be found within the game's digital manual. However, I have heard some rumors on a few online forums claiming that Europe was the only region outside of Japan to receive details about the Metal Gear games, including the tap code, in their version of the MGS3 Subsistence instruction manual. However, from scouring across the internet, I couldn't find any scanned images of the PAL version's manual to support this rumor. If any of you viewers own a PAL version copy of the game on PS2, including the manual of course, please let me know if it's true or not in the comment section down below. If you want to go above and beyond and show me scans of the manual, feel free to post it under my post of this video on Twitter, or just post it on your own timeline and tag me in it. I greatly appreciate it. And with that said, I want to thank you all, as always, for watching, and I hope to see you guys in the next episode. Until then, take care.
What?